This is Mark Medina with the LA Times Lakers blog, and the Lakers are coming off a dominating performance against the Atlanta Hawks, but their celebration has to be fairly short-lived. They have a back-to-back at the Rose Garden against the Portland Trail Blazers, and to help us give us some insight on what Portland's up to these days, I'm going to bring in a very esteemed guest on the show. His name is Matt Calkins. He's a Portland Trail Blazers beat writer for the Columbian. Matt, how's it going?
It's going well, man. You know, you gave me a taste of this round table like 3.5 months ago, and I haven't had a chance to go back. It's like Lord of the Rings, man. I had the ring, and I lost it. I've been going through withdrawals ever since.
You've been going through withdrawal symptoms? You're doing all right, though? I'm back on.
I'm okay, man. I mean, I've gotten some help. I've got some people in my corner if things get stressful, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back.
Well, last time we were on, we talked about, kind of Portland struggling. They had a lot of injuries. Now it's a different situation. They are fifth in the Western Conference, have a 32-24 record. They have a 6-game winning streak, and most importantly, Matt, you gave them an A on your latest report card. What's going on with them?
You're the guy who read that. We combed through the numbers, and there was one hit on that story. I'm glad we could trace it back. Well, the thing is, Mark, I mean,
how did they pass the colors there?
In one sense, it's really not that much different than what we talked about a few months ago. I mean, they are riddled with the same injuries. Brandon Roy really has never returned to the caliber of player he once was. He's been out the past 30 games with a knee injury. Marcus Camby, their man in the middle, they've struggled with length and size more than anything. He's been out, but somehow this team has found a way. Well, I shouldn't say somehow. They've leaned on LaMarcus Aldridge, who here in Portland, everyone thinks should have been an all-star. Everybody thinks that he was snubbed in favor of Kevin Love, but he's not only playing like an all-star right now. He's playing like a guy who can make, second-team All-NBA, and I know that seems maybe a little biased. I'm trying not to be. I've just been watching this guy for the past month and a half, and he's been lights out with the jumper, with the fadeaway, with the pick and pop, and really him combined with guys like Andre Miller and Wesley Matthews and you guys stepping up every day. They do seem poised to at least make the playoffs. I'm not sure if they'll make a run, but they're right there.
We talked about LaMarcus Aldridge. He had Western Conference Player of the Week honors last week. Do you think he was snubbed?
That's an interesting question. I don't think he was snubbed, actually. I can see why people think he was snubbed. Most people are comparing him with Kevin Love, who is playing for an obviously struggling Minnesota team. And the thing about LaMarcus is he really came on for the past 6 weeks. Right when Brandon Roy officially announced that he's going to be out indefinitely, Aldridge's game soared to stratospheric heights. 2 Player of the Weeks he's had so far. He's only one of 4 Blazers to ever have 2, or 3 Blazers to ever have 2 Player of the Weeks in one season, Brandon Roy and Clyde Drexler being the other. But I really think that an all-star selection should be based on what you do from late October to, whenever the votes are tallied. And I think if you look at that, Kevin Love has had a slightly better overall season, but LaMarcus Aldridge is clearly right now the more valuable player. But the analogy how many people... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeff.
No, the analogy I was going to make is how many people can name a best documentary winner of the past 15 years? Not very many, but everyone knows what Hoop Dreams is, and the reason is because that was a great performer, a great movie that wasn't even nominated, and I feel like LaMarcus is getting the Hoop Dreams treatment. Everybody knows what he's doing because he was snubbed.
Have you been able to install the LaMarcus Aldridge key on your laptop yet?
Man, you read that thing pretty dang thoroughly. I haven't. The thing about keys is there's really only so much room on the key. So I have a LaMarcus key. So I mean I have a LaMarcus and an Aldridge key. So I can kind of alternate in between those. So that makes it a little easier that I don't have to spell it out. But yeah, I really would like just one LaMarcus Aldridge key to make this a little easier. But I'm using a PC, not a Mac, and the technology just hasn't advanced on it yet.
Oh, fair enough. Well, hey, we're talking with the Columbian's Matt Calkins. He covers the Portland Trail Blazers for that newspaper. You can also follow him him on Twitter at Blazer Banter. And one of the things he tweeted recently was Brandon Roy. He went through his most strenuous practice, he tweeted, according to Coach Nate McMillan, after he had, since he's gone through knee surgery. How's his progression coming along?
I mean, that's the question that nobody ever really knows the answer to. There's a reporter named Joe Freeman who works for the Oregonian. He did a little stand-up video, kind of like you do, last week, and he was saying that Brandon Roy, thinks he's going to be ready for the Lakers, and Freeman said, I think he means it this time, because he's been saying this pretty much throughout the season. Yeah, I think I'm going to come back here. He was ready to come back a couple weeks ago. Then he targeted the New Orleans game last week, February 16th. Now he's kind of thinking maybe he'll go today or tomorrow against the Lakers, maybe Friday. We never really know with Brandon, and that's sort of been the soap opera throughout the season. It sounds like he's getting better. He sounds like he's playing pain-free, but it's just one of those things that I don't think both he or hardcore Blazer fans have accepted that he's just not going to be the same. If Brandon Roy is productive, it's going to be because he's coming off the bench and he accepts that role off the bench. I think everyone, it's kind of like, have you ever lost your wallet and you check your jeans once, the last jeans you wore, you check back an hour later, they're still not there, then you check back an hour later, you're like, well, let me check my pants pockets one more time. It's crazy to think that they're going to be there, but you keep checking, and I feel like that's what's happening with Roy. People keep thinking he's going to come back and be the old Brandon Roy, but the unfortunately, like, the damage to the knee is just, it's too deep at this point. I'm not sure that we'll ever see that all-star player again.
I really wish I could relate to that. I'm pretty organized, have a very clean apartment. I know.
Sorry, man. I got to throw things out there that
that went way over my head.
I don't know, man. Maybe just what's that?
We're talking about injuries here. How's Marcus Camby coming along? I mean, he's another guy who came off knee surgery, and he's continuing to make it progression. But where exactly is he at this point?
Well, I'll just, I'll abstain from an analogy this time so that you're able to, to understand everything. But the thing about Camby, I think the bigger deal is not so much how he's coming along, but whether he's going to play in the Blazers uniform again. His name is constantly floated out there in trade rumors. He had some very interesting comments today. First of all, he is doubtful for the Lakers game. But, he was saying that he loves it here in Portland, that if he would have known he'd be in this situation in terms of, potentially being traded, he wouldn't have signed his extension last year. He talked about how, execs from the Blazers kind of wooed him and, got his wife, to the spa and really pampered him and said, hey, we want you here for the long haul. And it sounds a little bit petty. I don't think he's being petty so much as just trying to say, listen, I really want to be here. I'm almost 37. I don't want to be moving around anymore, which is understandable, but he also knows it's a business, and I think Blazer fans really embrace Camby. They like his work ethic. He's not a guy who cares about stats, but, he does all the intangibles, as they say, and that's the bigger deal with Camby. That's the bigger point of interest, and my guess is that he will be traded, but I don't have a whole lot to substantiate that at this point because Portland General Manager Rich Stroh's pretty tight-lipped whenever it comes to anything trade-wise.
Well, okay, they're tight-lipped about as far as maybe they'll make any trades before Thursday's deadline, but you've seen them game after game. What kind of needs do you think that they have at this point that they could add? They lack a lot of speed. That's one thing that Nate McMillan brings up a lot is, we struggle with the really fast point guards. And Andre Miller has, he's been a soldier for this team this whole year, but he's not the quickest guy. He's also not the youngest guy. So you hear Devin Harris of the New Jersey Nets being floated out there a lot. Can the Blazers get him? But the problem with the Blazers is not what they need. It's how they can go about attaining that. They don't have a lot of guys necessarily with a lot of value that they can trade. Andre's got an expiring contract and he's older, so that's one asset. But they're kind of tethered to Brandon Roy with his contract, and those contenders
don't need another point guard. So the speed and size is one thing they need, but the question is, can they get it? And it doesn't look like they can vastly improve this team. But one thing that can be said today is, if Roy comes back and is a lot better, and Camby returns and he's back to his old self, then it's sort of like they did upgrade their team like a trade, just not officially,
Totally gotcha. We're talking with the Columbians' Matt Calkins, who covers the Portland Trail Blazers. And, Matt, I got a few more questions here. We're looking at this Lakers matchup. They really blew them away out of the water the previous time they met at Staples Center. But, as you very well know, the Lakers have had a long history of struggles at the Rose Garden. They were able to end that streak last year, but still, Portland's been able to get their number most of the time this past decade. How much of a factor do you see that going into this matchup?
Oh, well, I don't know if it's going to really be a factor or not. I mean, you being in LA, having covered this team for the past couple of years, do you think it's a little bit comical just like how fans sort of think that, things are coming to an end and the apocalypse is coming in Lakerville when they struggle a little bit? I mean, isn't this sort of par for the course for this team at this point of the year?
Yeah, it's par for the course a little bit, but there's a few differences. One, they've never lost 4 games in a row since 2007, and I think people can kind of roll their eyes when they look at other teams. Teams can go through a 4-game losing streak, but for the amount of talent that the Lakers have, they should be dominating teams, and they've been losing by double digits to sub-500 teams, with the exception of that win against Boston. They really never got up for some of those elite games.
To me, there's 2 ways you can look at the Lakers.
Understandable. Part of it's understandable. They've gone through 3 consecutive NBA finals. It's hard to really keep a championship team motivated, but just by their talent alone, there's no reason why they should have had the loss that they're having. And believe me, Matt, I moderate comments every day. There's a lot of passionate Laker fans, but I think it's kind of almost a misnomer and almost an overreaction from the media and the team itself that fans are panicking. I don't think the common fans panicking. They're just more angry than anything else. That, look at the talent that the Lakers have. Why are they doing this? Why are they making it harder for themselves in terms of not having home court advantage against San Antonio, just not, putting in the work that's needed to establish some consistency.
Right. I think
when there's always,
I think there's a couple ways to look at it. You can
make it even more difficult in terms of, teams giving them the best shot, trying to stay healthy, maintain the fatigue. That's the concern that fans have. I don't think people are they see a 2 or 3 or 4-game losing streak and people are running around LA with their hair on fire saying, "Oh, it's the end of the world." I think they're just justifiably upset about the lack of effort.
Listen, the next time I ask you a question, can you give me an elaborate response, please?
Yeah, I was trying to be very pithy, but you just got me rolling. But we talked a little bit about this matchup here. But what's interesting, big picture, is you talked about Portland getting that 6-game winning streak. They're 5th in the Western Conference. If you look at the standings, they're not too far behind Oklahoma City, but they don't really have that much of a lead against some of the likes of New Orleans, Denver, Utah, even Memphis and Phoenix. Ultimately, how do you see Portland shaking out, when you compare them to the rest of the Western Conference teams that are fighting for some playoff position?
Yeah, well, let me give you a real quick cliff note there. To your previous question, I think the Lakers are going to win. I don't like how Portland matches up with them. The Lakers are big and long, and Portland just isn't. They've been struggling with size all season, so I give a big pitch to the Lakers, especially given their newfound focus, in my opinion, post-All-Star break. In terms of the Blazers compared to the rest of the West, I think it's a little smoke and mirrors right now, a little fool's gold. They're 5th place, kind of. It's percentage points ahead of New Orleans, but they're only a game and a half out of 9th place. And Memphis, they had a great run before the end of the All-Star break. Utah, they lost their coach, but there's a lot of talent there. And Denver, they lost Melo, but they destroyed Memphis today, and You know, we saw Vince Carter go down with the Raptors a few years ago, and the Raptors played infinitely better without him. So I would not count Denver out, and given the stretch that Portland has in front of them with that schedule, I mean, I would say they could finish in 5th place. I'd also say they could miss the playoffs. I mean, that's really the concern here, and that's why games like the Lakers and the Nuggets they got on Friday and the Hawks after that are really important. So people were a little bit on edge. I think they were relieved that Melo was dealt, but I don't think they should bank on that either. And that's also sort of the dilemma for a guy like Rich Cho is, do we stay the course and see if we can make a playoff run, or do we make some moves and try to look toward the future?
So lastly, Matt, what's it going to come down to these remaining stretch of games for them to hold a definitive spot in the playoffs as opposed to falling out of the picture?
What is it going to come down to? Man, that's a great question. I think literally LaMarcus Aldridge is the one kind of holding the cards here. I think it's kind of up to him. I mean, he really truly has become a guy, and I'm not sure if this is really recognized league-wide, but he really has become a guy that can carry a team. He's not just having, spot games here and there. He's not just having good quarters. He's a guy that has such a diverse arsenal, and a guy that they've really been leaning on in the fourth quarter. I mean, I think for a stretch of 4 games, he's averaging 10 points per fourth quarter for a little while, and he's had 3 career highs in a 3-week stretch. He went to 37, then to 40, then to 42. He only seems to be getting better. And teams are doubling him and not figuring out how to stop him. So if he's able to play at that level, are they going to win a first-round playoff game? Probably not. Could they get a 5th or 6th seed? Yeah, I think they definitely could.
Those are the thoughts. Matt Calkins, Portland Trail Blazers beat writer for the Columbian. Matt, thanks a lot for all your time.
You got it, man.